this is our dashboards, and with dashboards, you can show the information which you have been running in the system, that which you've put in, whether it's from your requirements which you've got in the system, test cases, test executions, or issues. So all of these things come together in your dashboard. And I like to show the dashboard at the beginning, because whatever you put into PractiTest, you can hopefully show information about on the dashboard. And of course, it goes without saying, although sometimes you wonder why, it goes without saying that if you haven't put the information into PractiTest, then we can't develop dashboards for it. And you can put in all of your testing, you can put your test cases in, you can run them. But without the dashboards and the reports coming out of the system, you've got limited use from any test management system. And so I like to start off by focusing a little bit on the dashboards and show you the sort of information that can come out of the system. And so this is a sample dashboard here, which I created in just a couple of minutes. And you can have multiple dashboard tabs, as many tabs for your dashboards as you like, running across. And each dashboard tab can have 8 items in it. And you can share the whole dashboard tab if you want to by using a coded URL, which you can share with anyone who isn't a PractiTest user as well. So anybody in your company, or if you've got a kitchen monitor on the wall for those who still work in offices, then you can put up the monitor on the wall and you can show your dashboards, and they will update in almost real time. Every few minutes, they will update and show the information. But you can take the dashboards one stage further as well. And that is that each individual item on your dashboard is an iframe. And so you can embed these iframes into any wiki system which you happen to be using. So for example, if you use Microsoft SharePoint, or you use Confluence, or you use any other wiki system that supports iframes, you can take individual dashboard items and embed them. So they can be in separate projects, they can be in separate dashboard tabs. Just take the item you want, embed it into the wiki page, and then write a little explanation. You can take a few dashboard items from different places, put them in and make your own customized dashboard page in your own wiki system. And using that, you can write a little explanation of what they are, and they will update in almost real time. So let's just take a look at the sort of things I've got on my dashboard. I've got a little gauge over here, so I can set my reds, yellows, and greens, and I can set, this one's about instance coverage. So I can see that I've got my instances covered at 15.39%, which is very bad. If I go and make my coverage better, then it will improve. And here I have a progress graph, some progress information here. This is latest items which have been tests which have had run status and when they were last run. And then over here on the right, I've got some distribution tables. And we're going to talk about custom fields as we go through the system, and system fields. Custom and system fields, you can plot anything on a dashboard based on the markings of the custom fields. They're like smart tagging things. So your custom fields will have values in them, and then you can plot them against anything else. So for example, here I've got my browsers, and my browser values are the various dashboard, or the various browsers that you can have. A couple of rogue ones here, which I created. And then across here, I've got my run status. So I'm showing them by run status. And of course, you can filter as well. And you can filter them so it only shows specific test executions if you want to as well. And so I'm seeing my numbers over here for this particular set of runs. And at the moment, I've got it set to all instances, but I could set it because I also have a custom field, which is called sprint. So I could set it by a particular sprint value, so it would only show for that particular sprint. Then I've got a bar chart. Bar charts and distribution tables are essentially exactly the same. It's just that they show the information in different ways. So here I've got my custom fields across, and my run status is going up with different little bars over here. and it shows exactly the same information, except it shows it visually rather than numerically, as it would with a distribution table. And then down here, I've got a classic pie chart. You can have pie charts as well. And here's another distribution, another bar chart over here as well. This is, you could set it either to show it by run status or execution, or you could do coverage as well. So for example, if you wanted to show the number of tests which you're executing in different versions or different sprints, then you could do that as well. And that would show you your coverage based on sprint or version. So you have a tremendous amount of flexibility with these dashboard charts, and they're incredibly easy to create. Let's just take one, for example, and just show you what it looks like when we open it up and edit it. So for example, over here, edit dashboard item, I've got my dashboard tabs. That just shows which tab it's going to appear in. I can give it a name if I want to, but I don't have to because it will allow me to take a default name. And then I've got my entity, which we call instances, and I'll explain how we get to instances, but this is essentially executions. It's executions of test cases. And then we've got the item type distribution table. You can change it over here to the different availabilities of different sorts. So you can have planned versus executed. If you put planned execution dates and actual execution dates will come from the system automatically. You can have a step status pie. So for example, if you've got a test which you're executing and it has 10 steps and 9 steps pass, but only 1 fails, and you feel it's unfair that it should show completely as a fail, you can choose to look at the steps individually instead, if you prefer, and then it will mark it by those steps. And then finally, we've got the X and Y fields. So if you're doing a distribution table, then you'll have an X field and a Y field over here. So you've got field over here, test set browser, that's your X field. And then you've got your Y field over here showing run status. And so if it's obviously a bar chart or a distribution table, it will have 2. If you're doing a pie chart, it will only have 1. But in each of these cases, yeah. Any questions? No? Okay. So over here, we've got the information. If you want to embed it into a Confluence or a SharePoint page, here's the embed code which you can use, and that will embed it into the wiki page which you want. And as I said, it will update continuously. And one of the great things we have is that you can see a preview of what you've got. So if the information's not relevant or is not helpful, then you can just preview them over here. So for example, I'm going to filter it by this filter. Let's just take a random filter, login functional edge. I've just taken a random filter. Let's see if it's got any useful information. No, it's got virtually no useful information. I can get rid of the stuff which is empty values. So you can see this is not a helpful filter to me. So I could now change it and say that I want to have a better one. So I can look through my filters and see that I've got one over here for sprint 4. Let's click on that and see if that's useful. And there we are. I've got a more complete view over here. So you can use this panel on the right to see whether you're getting meaningful information without having to go out into the dashboard, check the dashboard, then come back and edit it again. So it's a powerful tool, the dashboard, and gives you a huge amount of value and information on what's going on in the system. We also have, yeah, Tom.
Yeah, so at a lower level, like what can you show us like how this data is being collected? What is the actual data that you're showing on the dashboard, and how do you,
of course, this is the next
how do you
stage.
maintain, how do you maintain the, I guess your testing requirements or something? How do you maintain all that, and how do you
Okay, that's the next stage that we go to. I just wanted to show a little demo of the sort of information that you're getting out, because when I tell you, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, well, why do I need to do that? And it will become clear that to show this sort of information on your dashboard, you need to go through certain processes, and that's where we're going to come out. Just to show you very quickly, we also have Excel reports which are much more drilled down. This just gives you numbers and a picture of what's going on. But we also have Excel reports which are much more detailed. So this is a sample Excel report of execution. We've got some nice little charts here. No real difference from the dashboard. But then when we click on the data tab, you can see the actual tests by name that have been run. You see the custom field, which was browser over here, that's appearing over here. You can see the test set name, which is the suite, the test execution suite that we're using. And then over here, you can see the step name, step description, step expected results. And if you've got a step actual result, I haven't filled them in here, should have done. There we are, there's one which I filled in. And then you can see the step statuses over here. So this is the sort of drilled down report that you can use either for analyzing what's going on, or if you need it for an audit at the end. You may have finished your testing and say, well, I need a report now, which I can use as an audit, so that if I ever get questions about my testing that I've done, I don't have to go searching in PractiTest. I can just pull out an audited report. And so this is an example of an audited report that you could use. And then when somebody says to you, well, why did the login test, the login via API fail? Why is it failing now? You can say, well, I ran it last on the 22nd, on the 15th of February, 2022. Well, that one did fail. I ran it on the 11th of November, 2018. And this was something which I wasn't expected to run on a regular basis. It was only a one-off test. That's part of the spec of it. And then when I checked it, it said it passed. So obviously you've done something which has changed the system since then. And I've got my audited report to prove that I did my testing properly and that any changes since then are somebody else's fault, not mine. And then on the final tab, we've got issues, any issues which were reported based on this particular set of testing, which is in this report, I can see here with their current statuses as well. So again, very useful. Their IDs are clickable and you can get directly into them from this report as well. If you've got the ability from Excel to log straight into the system, you can do it from here because these are clickable links and you can take them from here. Okay, so let's go into how do we get to what we've been dealing with. So let's go over here and let's go to our tests of issues. Let's go back to the start of the process. So here's my project. My project's called Antony Dash, and I've got over here the different modules of the system. So we've got, I'll mention milestones very briefly afterwards because they're new and they're in beta at the moment. So most people won't see them for today, but they're coming out in the next few weeks publicly for everybody. So the main modules are requirements, test library, test sets and runs, and issues. In the requirements module, you will have either your user stories, specifications, or just simply requirements that you have for your testing and what you're trying to do. So it might be a specification of a particular feature that you are required to test. And you can bring in your requirements from Jira if you like, or from Azure DevOps, and you can sync them into PractiTest. Or if you prefer, you can, or you don't use these tools, you just use it, you just want an all-in-one test management system, you can put or either import or write your requirements in PractiTest. You can import both requirements and test cases. The execution has to be done either within PractiTest or through an API call to make the execution happen, because we need to see evidence. We can't just upload a load of runs, because part of PractiTest is that history which shows a source of truth that you've actually done these things. So let's just, these are the typical grids that you see in PractiTest. They're all similar in all the modules. So you've got your requirements grid over here. You can customize what columns you see in it. That's all by choice. And you see I've got the name of my requirements over here. I've got the tests which are linked, the test cases which are linked to this requirement. You can see in this column over here. You can see any linked issues which have been created. Normally they won't be issues which are linked to requirements, because usually they're linked to the test run rather than to the requirement. But in a couple of cases, I've done that here. You can see the author, testing status, and what this is a custom field which I put in called a feature. And so the custom fields, we'll have a look at that in a moment, and you'll see how the custom fields can be either unique to a particular module of the system, or it can feed through to all the modules of the system, and you can have them in all. So let's just open up one of these requirements over here. So here's my requirement. It's a nonsense requirement. This ID's requirement, more info. So you've got your description over here. You can write in a full description. And then you've got these fields over here. So I've got a field called parent over here. I've got a feature field. These are all custom created by me. Blog, test, check. And you can see that we've got a mixture over here of list fields over here with values in them already set up. You could also have text fields over here like this, where you just type in the text and it doesn't remember it from other modules of the system or other places. Or when I type in, it's just free text. Or you can have also multi-lists as well. Those are also optional. And I've got a checkbox field, which I've created. So you've got a variety of different fields which you can create to customize the system to your own requirements. And so for the test library and the requirements, usually the sort of fields you will have are area fields rather than time or permutation-based fields. So it might be to do with a feature. It might be to do with a team who's doing the testing. It might be to do with a particular component of the system, or it might be to do with, for example, a particular area of the system that you're using as well. So these are the sort of things which you want to do for requirements and for test cases. Test cases in particular, because for test cases, you don't want to have to create new test cases when you want to test, let's say, 2 different browsers. You want to keep it generic to the browser. So when we get onto the test case in a moment and talking about the test case, then we'll talk about trying to make the test case as generic as possible so that then you can permutate it when you do the executions and have separate permutations of the same test case. The reason for having limited number of test cases and multiple permutations of them is because when you execute them, there is a, when you execute the test cases, there is a traceability link back to the original test case. But the original test case, you can then change and you'll see it going through into all the permutations, the changes. So it makes maintenance and updating the test case and finding that test case much easier if you don't have multiple test cases for all the permutations. You just have a single test case. So here's our requirement over here. We've got our testing status over here, which is locked based on any linked test cases to it. We can assign it if we want to, and it shows the created and last modified date over here. You can add attachments and you can add comments as well.
Where do you link a test case?
Oh, so
how do you link a test
we
case?
move to the next tab for that, which is the traceability tab. And in the traceability tab, you'll see this is new. This is the milestone section. So if you linked it to a milestone, then we'll talk about that briefly at the end. Then you'll see it over here. And here are my linked test cases over here. So I've got test 10 and test 11, feature B part 4, feature B part 3 are linked over here, and they're both failed. And we can add test cases by clicking the add button, the ID of a test case, or we can show tests. These are all my test cases over here. So for example, if I want to add another one, I can click over there. And now you see it's been added over here. And this is a no run test case. So once we've done that, then we can hide the view. We don't need it anymore. There we go. And over here, so we could add a new test case if we want to. And if we add a new test case, what it will do, stay on page, we better save changes first. If we add a new test case, then it will take you to the test library. And here you'll see it's taken the name from the requirement, and it's taken any description from the requirement as well. And any of the fields which are shared between requirements and test cases, which it will fill in automatically for you as well. So those are filled in automatically based on the requirement, but you can change them. You don't have to use those values. See, if I don't want to...
What is a test case?
So a test case is, for example, so let's take it starting at the highest level. The requirement is, for example, I want to be able to log in with, the requirement would be something like login. So I want to be able to log in with legal usernames. So your test case will then be, go to the login, log in with legal usernames. That's your first test case.
Yeah.
So then you'll have something like step 1. So we go to steps over here and we type in our steps. Step 1 will be go to whatever web page it is. So my description is go to the web page. The expected result, I land on the correct web page. Step 2, enter your username and password. So step 2 is expected result when I enter username ABC and then and password DEF, I'm allowed to log in. That's the expected result. And then the next step would be takes me to home page, user home page, personal area, and then expect to see personal area, and that's the actual result. And the actual result will be yes or no. So that's the sort of flow that you're talking about.
But how does this, you're outlining some steps. How does it tie into an actual test that tests the software?
Are you talking about automated or manual testing?
Automated testing.
So PractiTest is primarily a manual testing tool, though we can bring in results from the API from an automated testing tool. We are not primarily out there to go and execute automated tests.
Okay, that's interesting. So what is a okay, it's a manual testing tool. What does that mean?
Okay, so a manual testing tool means that you get the instructions telling you how to run a test. And then once you've got those instructions in front of you, you will execute those, you will fulfill those instructions. So for example, let's go to the execution area. So here we are, test sets and runs, and here I have a test set. Let's see. Let's go to let's have a look at our browser, the different browsers. Okay, so let's do this one at random. Hope there's something sensible inside it. This is a demo system, so it may not be incredibly meaningful what you see. Okay, so these are all automated tests. So the way the automation works is that you do your automated tests in, for example, Jenkins or Selenium or something like that, and then it passes the result to PractiTest so that you can manage the results and see what you're doing with your test executions. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
So that's certainly an option as well. Let's just go into this test and run it. So I'm going to run this particular test over here. It's going to take me to the test run page, and then it's going to produce all the instructions which I've put in. So you have a tester, the test manager manages the test cases, and then the tester has to run the test. So it's open a blank document, so you check it. Copilot prompts should be visible and accessible. It is. Then I move on to the next one. Code tab is home tab to be clickable, not clickable. So that fails.
Okay. So you're manually entering
I'm manually entering the results, yes. We can talk about automation as well. So here's the bug. It's written up a bug for me. Step number 2 failed. Test description was the step's expected result. The step actual result was not clickable. Following the steps to reproduce the issue. And there you go. Submit issue and continue testing. Done.
Okay.
Well, not done because I didn't fill in the fields, which this is a compulsory field. Showstopper component G. Now done. Okay, so that's the manual testing, the way manual testing works. If I want to use automated testing, then what I would need to do is have an automated test system which is running, and then using the API, we can feed the results into track. We've got a couple of methods. The primary method, one primary method is using the API. So when the API is running the automated test, you put a line on the end of the API automated test, which sends it to PractiTest. It finds the instance ID, which is the execution, and then it will create a new run in PractiTest, using the correct API call, which I can show you over here. This is all publicly available. All you need to do is to go to practitest.com API-v2, and
Hold
that.
on. Let me grab that.
I'll put that. Let me put that into the chat for you.
Okay.
There we go. And then if you go down to where it says runs over here, you'll see that you've got the parameters over here. So you can find the correct parameter by either feeding in the test ID and the set ID, which will then give you the instance IDs. So what you need at the end of the day to create a run is you need the instance ID. So the instance ID is the particular traceability copy of the test case. So what you can do is either when you start creating your test cases in Selenium or Jenkins, wherever it is, you can send a call which creates the test case in PractiTest and then creates an instance of it within the test suite. So you build up your automation suite in PractiTest and you send the instance IDs, and then you collect back the instance ID, which you can then use to create the automated run. And the way it works is that you can create the run steps on the fly as part of the create run, and it will overwrite anything which is in the test library for that particular, or which has come from the test library into that particular instance. It will allow you to overwrite it. So if you look here, oh, sorry, this is get all runs. No wonder I'm looking at the wrong thing. Here we go. So here we've got the data steps. So you can override the steps, and then you just give an exit code of either 0 as a pass or anything else is a fail. So what you actually need is you need your project ID, which is easy, you'll have, and then you create a run and you put in the instance ID over here. And when you put it in with the instance ID, it will be able to create that run in PractiTest, and then you'll have it in your test management system. That's one method. A second method is we have a proprietary XML parser. So if your test runs can produce an XML file in Surefire or JUnit format, then you can use that XML file and you can upload it into PractiTest, and it will automatically create the run for you. And it can look through all the stages. So if it finds the test case doesn't exist in the system, it will create it for you. If it finds the test set doesn't exist in the system, it will create that for you. And then at the final stage, it will create the run for you. Let me give you the help page for that as well, so you can look through. So this is called Firecracker, and it's got a little video over here, and it shows you the files that you need to download to execute it. So you need to download a jar file, and then you create your own configuration through the help page over here. It will take you to a configuration page where you can upload a sample XML file and work out how the parser works. And then you just run it through a command line interface to actually execute it. And it does it all automatically for you. And so you can set up a scheduler on it so that when it finds the new XML files come into the correct location, it will automatically execute the jar. And then once it's finished, it will dump the XML file and wait for the next one to arrive and then repeat the action.
So what's in the XML file? What kind of data does it collect from the test?
So the XML file would be a report file from an automation tool.
Like requirements and pass fail, requirement 1 pass, requirement 2 fail, that type of thing.
Let me just, I think I've got an XML file here. Let me just do this. Let me see if I can find an XML file. So that's the configuration page over here. Do we have an XML file? That's the line which you run. Oh, here we go. example script. No, that's a script. Sorry, that's not the XML file. No, I don't think there's one here.
I think
Let me just see.
Yeah.
Let me
I guess
see if
I'm
I can find one.
okay. In a minute.
Yeah, I just need to look for it in my .xml. Right. No, I can't find one at the moment. Let's see if I've got it somewhere else. XML.
Back.
Yeah, I'm just looking in my emails at the moment. No. Yeah, let's try .xml a moment. No, afraid I can't find one at the moment. Oh no, that's something totally different. Ah, here we go. See if that brings up anything. Sample.xml. Nope. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Right,
so how do you, does each, let me go back to PractiTest, does each requirement have a requirement number when you were entering those requirements?
Hang on a second.
That stays with
does
it?
each requirement have an ID? So yes, it comes up with a, you could, if you want to use your own requirement ID, then you can do that using a custom field if you want to. But if you're happy to use our requirement IDs, then you can just have them in the requirement ID in PractiTest. If you're bringing them in from Jira, for example, are you going to be using Jira or another test tool?
I'm not sure what we'll be using. I'm just trying to.
Okay, so ClickUp, we have an integration with ClickUp, Octavi.
Okay, and do you think it can complete these requirements?
Yes, you should be able to integrate it with ClickUp, and yes, it will create a task in. Whenever I fail a test in PractiTest, I automatically create a task in ClickUp. You won't be able to do it automatically because we don't believe in letting tasks create automatically, because otherwise you don't know whether it's something you actually want to create. But if you click the fail and issue button when you're executing a test in PractiTest, then it will automatically create it in ClickUp as well.
Okay, but it would be created as a task, I guess.
Yes. Well, you can select what it will be created as, because
as a task, let's call it a ticket. Yes, whatever.
Yeah, you can choose. You can choose because you can set the synchronization to work the way you want it to.
Okay.
And in fact, we actually work very closely with ClickUp. We have a close working relationship. So
okay.
we're continuously improving the ClickUp integration.
And would you mind showing a little bit how it works?
Yeah, just a moment. 1 second. Let me just share my screen and bring it back to. see if it's not in this particular project. I just need to find which project it's in. I think it's actually, confusingly enough, in the DevOps project. It can't be. 1 second, let me just see which. Can't remember which project I've got. There we go. Let's try ClickUp. It might be in here. Okay, let's just check. So if I go to project settings, I can check that my integrations, if my integration is ClickUp over here. Yes, it is. Okay, now I haven't used this for a little while, so it might or might not work. So here I've got my requirements module, and my requirements module is synced to ClickUp. Whenever you have a sync between different systems, you will always get a link to the page which you need showing from the synchronization. Let's try and get into ClickUp, see if it will let me in. Okay, so this is my story in ClickUp I've got in, and it shows my activity over here. So we've got custom fields over here synced in as well. So let's just go back to PractiTest a moment, and let's go to the test. Let's go to a test. So I've got a test over here, which is showing us passed. I'm going to open up the test. Here we are. It's been synced from a task in ClickUp. And if I go over here to the traceability tab, I'm now going to run it and click on run. And when I'm running it, you'll see my steps come up here. Do this first happens first. This works. Let's go to actual result over here. This fails. So that's pass. And this one, I'm going to click fail in issue and click ClickUp issue over here. Here's the box which comes up. It allows me to choose the space and the list over here. So I can choose different spaces and lists. If I had a task over here, then it would be over here. So space backlog, for example. There's the name. It populates it for me automatically, that I don't have to follow it. And here's my description over here. I can select a custom field if I want to. And let's create the issue with ClickUp. I'm going to click on here to see it in ClickUp, because I've created it from PractiTest. If I go in, here we go. Step number 2 has failed. Step description was do next. The next was it happens. The step actual result was this fails. The following steps to reproduce. First step, and here we go, link to run. And there's our custom field over here, which is, you can put it over here. Got some more custom fields. Which aren't filled in because we don't have them synced into PractiTest, these particular fields. So this is the way you can set it up from PractiTest.
Okay.
And what it does then is it creates a sync. It creates a copy, a traceability copy, which is read-only in PractiTest. So if we go now and I just refresh the screen, you'll see it's created an issue over here. You see the issue over here, and you see it's not using a PractiTest ID, it's using a ClickUp ID here. So this is your ClickUp ID. The bug reported from test, here it is, and you see it's set as issue type task, and there's the URL over there to get to it in ClickUp. You can one click to get to it. And then here's the reproduction steps. You can see the type here. You can see the component over there, the ClickUp field from component from Firefox over here showing as well.
Okay, and it works both ways. I mean, if I update that in ClickUp, it would reflect also in PractiTest.
In general, we consider the third-party system to be the source of truth. So we don't allow you to change things. If we look at status here, status stays at open. You can't change it. So when you change it in ClickUp, and I know ClickUp takes a bit longer than ours, than other. So the status is open. Let's change the status to pending. Has that been updated? Whoops, I moved it to closed. Okay, fine. So it takes a moment, but after a minute or two, it should switch to closed from state. There we go. Status is now closed. You see, it changed when I refreshed it.
Okay, and whatever it's in the description, it will also
whatever
update.
it is. If you change the description, then ClickUp, it will change in PractiTest as well. Yeah, everything updates from ClickUp.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Any other questions at the moment?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how a requirement goes from a test, how a requirement number is maintained in a test in another tool, and how it matches the requirement number that is maintained in your requirements in PractiTest.
So do you have another tool in mind at the moment?
No.
So
if need suggestions.
If you have Jira or ClickUp, as you saw, this is the issue from ClickUp. If we go back to the grid, the issues grid in PractiTest, you'll see that we've got our IDs from ClickUp over here. If you're using Jira, let's just take it into a Jira demo. So if I go to, just need to switch accounts for this one because it's in a different account.
I think for us, well, I'm not sure what Jira.
So for example, here we go. You see, we've got our Jira IDs are our PractiTest.
So yeah, we would maintain requirements in PractiTest. We don't have Jira.
Right.
But what I'm asking is, I have requirements with numbers in PractiTest.
Yeah.
And I have a test running in something else, PyTest or Jenkins running PyTest.
Okay.
How does that run tie into the requirement that is maintained in PractiTest?
So, oh, right. I see what you're asking. What you're actually asking is, because the test cases are and the executions are linked to the requirement, as I showed you, the traceability link, then this testing status will show the combined statuses of the tests which you've executed from HighLink when they are fed into PractiTest. So if they've all passed, the requirement will change to passed over here. If some have failed, it will show failed.
But how does that linkage work? How does a test, how is it a test that's written in Python? How does it create a pass-fail that makes it into this somehow?
Okay, so we said it could either be through the API or through the XML upload. So we've skipped one step in the whole thing, which I should have gone through, but we sort of got sidetracked. The one step is that the test cases need to be executed, and you don't execute the test cases themselves because the test cases stay in the test library. To actually execute them, what you do is you put them into a test suite and a test set, and that test set contains what are called instances, which are traceability copies of the test case. So for example, here we've got our test instances in the test set over here. So it might be an end-to-end test set, or it might be an automation test set. So if you've got an automation test set and you're feeding the information into it, then each of these tests, their run status will update. So if you see, we've got over here, where's our run status over here? We can move this across. This is a particularly nasty place. Let's move it up. It's too far down. So let's go here and we find our run status. It's just after last run reviewed. Let's go and find it over here. Last run reviewed by run status. Let's move it up the page because it's obviously going to be important. So let's move it up here. Okay, and now you'll see that the run status has moved across to here. So, okay, so we've got run status over here. So either the XML files through the Firecracker tool will be uploading the results into PractiTest directly like this, or if you're using the API, they'll be uploading the results over here. And when a particular test updates over here and it says it's passed, you'll see that this test, let's follow the traceability through. So this is the instance of the test. So if I click on the instance over here, so this is an instance of it. And then we go back to the test case in the test library. You'll see that in the test library, it has a last run status over here of passed. And this, through the traceability, goes to the requirement. And then the requirement picks up that this is passed. And it's now passed because any test cases which are linked into it, because we added them to that requirement, are now passed. So the requirement status will now show passed as well.
What does the test look like, though? The actual test?
The actual test in this case is a regular test case with instructions on it. But what you're going to do, if you're using automation, is you're going to feed, presumably you use assertions. So the assertion, when you're running an automated test, it will reach a certain point and then it will fail, or it will go through the whole way and pass. So if it goes through the whole way and passes, normally you wouldn't need to send anything. It would just be the exit code and it's passed. Is that the sort of way you're working?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're using PyTest, I think. Some people are using PyTest, but I'm not sure quite how that ties in.
But then if it fails, then presumably you will send you'll send the exit code, which will not be a 0. So that you'll send to PractiTest and it will know immediately the test has failed. But then
how does it know?
Because any exit code except 0 is a failure.
But how does it know what requirements are in that test? What if it tests 5 requirements?
Okay, so what it's going to do is, let's go back again. So we're back to the test instance now. So here's the test instance. And you'll see over here, when I scroll over it, can you see that the test instance, if you look at the very bottom of the screen, where the URL is that it's hovering over, and it says prod.practitest.com, project 20682, sets, and then it has instances, and that instance number 94770107, that is the code which you need to send to activate this test, to create a new run of this test. So when you send it to that ID, it will then, with an exit code of 0, it will pass it. If you send it with an exit code of anything but 0, it will fail it. And then you can override the step by, when you send that API call, as you send it with that instance ID of 947 and then you say that you want to override you put in a parameter for steps, data. You're sending a data parameter, and that data parameter will override the steps, and it will write whatever you want to in the step, and it will show that that step has failed. So it could be an error code. It could be the line in the code where it fails at, or something like that. Whatever it is you want to send, you can get the automation to send that. And then when you open up the test run and you look inside the test run, so I open up the test instance. This is the wrong sort of test instance. This is an exploratory test, not a system test. So this is a scripted test. Here we go. So I open up the test instance, and you'll see that we've got the most recent run over here. And when I open up the run, instead of showing me all this, do this first. What it will do is it will show exactly what you have told it to put in.
Okay. So have you guys integrated with PyTest?
Probably it would go through the API. We don't, in general, we've got a couple. We've got things like Circle CI, which are Circle CI orbs. But in general, what we prefer to do is to improve the API itself so that we have all the calls that you could possibly need. And we've got a standard API, which will allow you to upload anything you want into PractiTest through it.
So is that your Firecracker tool, or is that the other?
No, so we either have the API or Firecracker. So if you prefer to use Firecracker using the XML files, as long as it's a surefire format XML, it will work in PractiTest, and you can configure it to work in PractiTest. That tends to be less work, but obviously the API is more customizable.
Okay, so the API, so PyTest, you would think would want to use the API as a first start.
I presume that PractiTest has a user accessible API. Let's have a
PY test. PY,
PY,
not P.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, but as in Python, of course.
Yeah.
PractiTest API. Whoops. Let's have a look. Reference. Yeah, here we are. API PyTest documentation. So yes, you've got an accessible API here. So yes, you can send the results. You can call the results out of the API in Python, in PyTest, and send them to PractiTest. Yes.
Okay. The PyTest API. Okay, we'll look at that. So PyTest API should be set up to send whatever info it needs
to get whatever you need and then send it to PractiTest.
On pass fail, and somehow it has to know the requirement number that already exists in PractiTest.
No, it doesn't need the requirement, because as long as the test instance is linked to, well, the test instance comes from a test case. The test, as long as you've linked that test case to the requirement in PractiTest, then it will automatically know where the requirement is.
Okay, the test case.
I think we may be talking at cross purposes here. I think when you talk about requirements, you're actually talking about the test case.
Well, I think a test case may test 3 different requirement numbers.
Right. So yes, you can link it to 3 requirements then. You can link your test case to 3 requirements.
It'll have 3 different pass fails. A test case may output requirement 1 pass, right. Requirement 2 fail, requirement 3 pass.
Okay, so then in that case, that's a little bit more complicated. The milestones module may help with that, because you could then make it into a milestone, and you can link multiple requirements and multiple test instances to the requirement, and it will show you the correct results for each requirement based on that. So you might need to do that through the new milestones module.
Yeah, okay. So, but
we're coming to the end of the session now. Okay. What I'd advise is, next steps, all of you, in fact, is to firstly take out a free trial of PractiTest. That's very easy. You just go to PractiTest.com and there's an option to take out a free trial.
How long does it last? A month?
It's 14 days.
Okay.
It can, under certain circumstances, be extended, though. Okay. So talk to them about that.
Okay. Okay.
And so that would be the first thing. Let me just show you PractiTest.com, free trial at the top here. It's
yeah, I see that. Yeah.
It's 100% fully functional. So just put in a little bit of data, test it out, see what you can do. The other thing is that we have sales advisors who are expert in taking your requirements, working through them with you, doing demos for you. You don't need a full demo, obviously. Now you need a customized demo specifically to discuss what you're trying to do in your use case. So talk to them and go through and do a demo with them, and they'll be able to advise you, take you through. There may be circumstances for calls for a POC, which are possible as well, and or certainly longer than 2 weeks if you need that. Then we can certainly discuss all these things with you. But I'm not sales team, so they'll have the exact details and give you the best way to proceed.
One question on the 5-person license, is that a shared license, or does that have to be an individual user license?
It's named, but they're changeable by you at any time.
Oh, okay. So, all right, you'd have to actually change the name and reinstall or something.
No reinstall. You just go to the user. You just go to the account settings. You just go to account settings. You say you want to remove this person from all the projects they're connected to. It keeps their history. Their history doesn't get lost. And then you just put on the new person. And if you want to switch back, you just take off the new person and put back the old person.
I was thinking of more of a shared usage where we really have 10 people that would use it.
Yeah, we don't have concurrent licenses. We don't.
Okay, no concurrent. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay,
but we do have commenters. If people only want to be able to see the system but not use the system, we have, if you're looking at Teams, then it's 5 free commenters for every paid user you get.
Okay.
So if you just want people to look at the system and write comments on things, then you don't need to pay for a license for that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go research your linkage of test cases to requirements.
Okay, that's great. And there's you can talk to support as well. You can there's the contact us. You can talk to support. You can also as I said, take out the free trial and use the system. Just get your hands on with it. And we've got full documentation in the help button over here. So if you click help, that will show you our full documentation. So you can go through the documentation as well.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Anthony.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Hope it was of some help to you.
Yes, you were. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Right.
Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.